Two former eBay executives charged with cyber stalking a Natick couple learned their punishment today. The two sent nasty messages and grotesque items, including a mask of a bloody pig face, to Ina and David Steiner.
It was a death threat, and to be followed up a few short days later with a funeral wreath. These people were going to hurt or kill Ina.
eBay tried to ruin an elderly couple over free speech. The Steiners are victims of brutal harassment by the corporate giant. For weeks, they were sent disturbing messages and packages, a box filled with bugs and a box filled with a bloody mask. And at some point, their well-being was threatened by this group of eBay employees who were destined to end their lives. So let's get into it. So I found this disturbing story, and it's a perfect example of how powerful entities in Hollywood and business use their power to target and harass people. We're going to be talking about the eBay Stalking Scandal, which was a campaign conducted in 2019 by eBay and contractors. eBay actually hired these contractors to do their dirty work. And this cute old couple, Ina and David Steiner, were targeted by eBay, these CEOs who decided to hire people to ultimately terrorize them for what they were posting on the internet, which I really connected with because I post a lot on the internet, and sometimes I get threatened and it's wrong. I always speak out against it, and it's so great that they are speaking out against such powerful people. Currently, several eBay employees are in federal prison, and the couple who ran the website E-commerce Bytes have filed a federal lawsuit against eBay and several current and former employees. Here's their website, and pretty much they write independent articles about e-commerce sites, and they give people tips about how to navigate a tricky world, because a lot of people are taken advantage of online while shopping or selling.
It was in retaliation after the couple posted negative articles about eBay on their blog about e-commerce.
Now let's talk about the article that set off eBay and led them to attempt to ruin these people's lives. The article was about the CEO, Devin, and how he earns 152 times that of his employees. So he's making a lot more money than the people who are working at eBay, which maybe explains why eBay is so mid. I used to use eBay back in the day, but not anymore. David Steiner, victim of this eBay stalking, was quoted saying, "One of the things that we also learned was what sadistic pleasure these people took in terrorizing us. During the harassment, the couple were sent packages containing disturbing items, such as dead insects and horror movie pig masks."
Over the next week, someone sent boxes of live cockroaches and spiders to the Steiners. Pornography was sent to their neighbors, but addressed to David. On social media, the Steiners' home was listed as the site of yard sales and sex parties. And then, this book about surviving the loss of a spouse, addressed to David, arrived at the Steiners' doorstep.
There's a lot to unpack there, because it's not like just a few packages. There's clear threats, especially if they're sending books about how to cope with the loss of your partner. Are you threatening to kill one of us? Ina, the wife, was quoted saying, "It felt like corporate terrorism because we were terrorized, and it was very calculated. It was very vicious."
It was a death threat, and to be followed up a few short days later with a funeral wreath, an expensive funeral wreath, it only confirmed that these people were going to hurt or kill Ina.
So we're getting books on how to cope if you've lost your partner. We're getting wreaths in the mail to prepare for a funeral. They told 60 Minutes that they were signed for an adult-oriented newsletter and that their emails were bombarded by a bunch of creepy things. The harassment continued on social media such as Twitter, and then they got phone calls. So these people were getting harassment in all directions, just funded by eBay.
Sin City Fetish Night, the Satanic Temple, the Communist Party, and dozens of others.
At one point, they received a call, and they're quoted saying, "Somebody left a voicemail for us saying they couldn't fulfill an order for a wet specimen," Ina said. David called them, and he asked, "What wet specimen?" And it was for a pig fetus. Ina says that's when her heart sank, because at this point, she was curious to who she could have written about that would be so upset that they would do all of this.
Taken from the filing were allegedly sent to a couple who run an online newsletter that was apparently critical of eBay. So what you're going to see here, there's a Halloween mask in the middle of a dead pig's head, a book of advice on surviving the loss of a spouse, and a Hustler magazine mailed not to the couple, but to their next door neighbors with their names on it.
So of course, Ina and David were calling the police about this, and they started to investigate. At one point, David caught one of these people involved with harassing them. He took a picture of their license plate, and they looked up the car rental business and found out that one of the people who were renting this car were involved with eBay. Ina did a little bit of researching, and it was clear that this person works for eBay and is now renting these cars where they live and sending people to do horrendous things to them.
The U.S. Attorney in Massachusetts, Andrew Lelling, announced the indictments of 6 employees and contractors from eBay.
The complaint alleges that the victims were targeted because eBay executives were unhappy with the coverage of eBay on the couple's website.
Now let's talk about the masterminds behind this stalking harassment situation. So we've got Devin and we've got Steve. Devin was the CEO of eBay and Steve was the chief communications officer. Devin was caught sending text messages about Ina saying, quote, "take her down." Steve then decided to take it into his own hands and told the head of security named James that he wanted to see ashes. James was then hired to pretty much be the ringleader of this harassment campaign.
Steve Weimer wrote back, "We're going to crush this lady." About a month later, Wenig, the CEO of eBay, texted, "take her down." Prosecutors say Steve Weimer later texted eBay security director Jim Baugh, "I want to see ashes, as long as it takes, whatever it takes."
This ended up becoming a huge case because it is eBay, and the U.S. attorney was quoted saying that this was a systematic effort by senior employees of a major company to destroy the lives of a couple just, living their life. All because they published content that the company did not like. For a while, they succeeded, psychologically devastating these victims for weeks as they desperately tried to figure out what was going on and to stop it. And when you start looking into this investigation, it is so scary to see what eBay did, because they literally set up in their workplace an effort to go and to harass them. They were calculated. These people were hired on salary. They had contractors involved.
Posted a map of Natick on the wall and then dispatched a team to Boston. 7 people who worked for eBay's safety and security unit, including 2 former cops and a former nanny, all pled guilty to stalking or cyberstalking charges.
Because they got to the bottom of this and it was a high-profile case, we actually did see some action and there were convicted criminals.
2 former eBay executives charged with cyber stalking a Natick couple learned their punishment today. A judge sentenced James Baugh to 57 months in prison, while David Harville will serve 48 months. The 2 sent nasty messages and grotesque items, including a mask of a bloody pig face, to Ina and David Steiner.
Of course, eBay needed to disconnect themselves from this situation because it's not a good look. They did put out a statement saying that the misconduct of these former employees was wrong. They do not condone this. They're not about it. And they're trying to disconnect, saying that they were completely unaware that this was happening. So now let's go back to Devin and Steve, because the top guys who pretty much started this whole thing didn't even really get in trouble.
Are the charges that are laid out. And Tyler, too, I also want to mention that the statement from eBay that came earlier today does mention Devin Wenig. He was CEO at the time at eBay. They said that they found no evidence that he authorized these actions or knew about them beforehand, but they did say that there was some inappropriate communication. So
Devin left eBay in September 2019 with a $57 million severance package. After the harassment scandal became news, Devin was re-elected to the board of General Motors. So he's over here working, super powerful, please don't come after me.
Former CEO Devin Wenig said in a statement to 60 Minutes that he was appalled at what happened, and had he been aware of it at the time, he would have stopped it. Wenig resigned from eBay in September of 2019 with a $57 million exit package.
Now let's talk about our buddy Steve, because he's doing something that I'm wait, what are you doing? Because he's working with children now. And I'm I really wouldn't expect that from someone who's like, you know, who pretty much orchestrated this scary harassment campaign. I would not want them involved with my kids, but that's what he's up to.
Steve Weimer was fired for cause by eBay and now runs the Boys and Girls Clubs of Silicon Valley. He has said his texts were mischaracterized and that he learned of the employee's conduct only after the fact.
Even though these men are currently out and free, I do think there will be consequences at some point. And I think that this couple is going to pursue that because, like, I wouldn't feel good if these men were still out here and maybe they're still enraged. They're super wealthy. They could go and just, like, you know, get rid of these people if they really wanted to. I mean, we would probably know that it's them because there's a lot of motive there, but I would be scared if the culprits of this weren't charged.
Quote, both men demonstrated a clear contempt for the law when they weaponized eBay's security department to engage in incredibly disturbing pattern of retaliatory harassment and intimidation to torment this couple, who thankfully did not let their fear silence them.
At the end of the day, we need to protect people who are speaking out against powerful entities like eBay and in business and in, you know, Hollywood. And I felt really inclined to speak about this story because I'm threatened all the time and it's just not okay. And maybe one day I could have all those horrible things happen, like knock on wood that it does not happen. But, like, you know, I could be a victim one day as well. And I just, like, stand with those people. So good to them for suing them. Hopefully they got, like, some payout or something. But comment below what you think about this video and I'll see you in a new one soon. Bye, guys.